Collision. Michael Hayden drove home in silence, the city lights flickering past his windshield. His meeting with Carlo had left him shaken. $5 million to move in 30 days. 10 if Carlo decided to push harder. It was suicide. Moving that much money so quickly would light up federal databases like fireworks, but saying no wasn't an option. When he stepped into the house, the smell of roast chicken greeted him, warm and familiar. Sarah stood at the stove, Emily setting the table. For a brief moment, the scene looked like any other family evening in Oak Brook Heights. Normal. Safe. But Michael no longer belonged in that picture. Dinner was quiet. Too quiet. Emily avoided his gaze, poking at her plate. Sarah ate mechanically, her shoulders stiff. Finally, she set down her fork. "We need to talk." Michael's chest tightened. He forced a smile. "About what?" "About you sneaking out at night. About receipts for hotels and restaurants you've never mentioned. About how our daughter sees less and less of you every week." Emily froze, her fork halfway to her mouth. "Sarah." "No." Her voice was sharp, cutting through the silence. "Don't say it's work. Don't lie to me again." Michael's pulse hammered. He opened his mouth, searching for words, but none came. He could feel Emily's eyes on him, wide and questioning. Finally, he whispered, "I can't explain everything. Not yet. But it's not what you think." "Then what is it?" Sarah demanded. "Tell me. Right now." Michael's throat closed. To tell her the truth was to put her in danger. To keep lying was to lose her trust. Either way, he was trapped. He stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the tile. "I can't." Sarah's face hardened, a mix of anger and heartbreak. Emily stared down at her plate, her knuckles white around her fork. Without another word, Michael walked out of the room. In the driveway, he gripped the steering wheel, breathing hard. He wanted to drive, to escape, but there was nowhere to go. He couldn't run from Carlo. He couldn't run from his family. His phone buzzed. A text. "You're being watched. Be careful what you say at home." Michael's stomach dropped. The anonymous caller again. Whoever it was, they were close. Close enough to know his secrets were bleeding into his family. He typed back quickly, "Who are you? What do you want?" No reply. Michael sat in the dark car, the silence pressing down like a weight. Inside, Sarah washed the dishes with trembling hands. Emily hovered nearby, hesitant. "Mom?" Emily whispered. "I saw Dad downtown last week. With 2 men. They put him in a black SUV." Sarah froze, water running over her hands. She turned slowly. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't know what to say." Emily's voice cracked. "I thought maybe he was cheating. But it didn't look like that. It looked scary." Sarah pulled her daughter into a hug, her mind racing. Something was very wrong. Worse than she'd imagined. And the worst part was that Michael had chosen silence over trust. 2 days later, Jonathan Cross appeared again, this time at the college where Sarah worked. He caught her in the parking lot, his smile easy, disarming. "Hey, Sarah. Small world again." She laughed weakly. "Seems like it." Cross hesitated, then lowered his voice. "Look, forgive me if I'm crossing a line, but I've noticed you seem tense. Is everything okay?" Sarah wanted to brush him off, to tell him it was none of his business. But the concern in his eyes was steady, genuine. For the first time in weeks, she felt like someone was really listening. "My husband," she said finally. "Something's wrong. He's lying to me. I don't know about what, but it's tearing us apart." Cross nodded, his expression carefully neutral. "I'm sorry to hear that. Sometimes men hide things because they think they're protecting their families. But lies have a way of catching up." Sarah's chest tightened. "Do you think he's cheating?" Cross held her gaze. "I think whatever he's hiding, it's bigger than that." Sarah blinked. "What do you mean?" Cross smiled gently, retreating just enough. "Just be careful. If you ever need help, don't hesitate." He handed her another slip of paper with his number, this time handwritten. When he walked away, Sarah stood frozen, clutching the paper like a lifeline. That night, Michael returned home late. Sarah waited for him in the living room, the lights dimmed. "We can't go on like this," she said. Michael rubbed his temples. "I know." "Then tell me the truth." He looked at her, the woman he had loved since college, the mother of his child. His lips parted, but the words died in his throat. If he told her, he'd put her in Carlo's crosshairs. If he didn't, he'd lose her anyway. "I can't," he whispered. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She stood, shaking her head. "Then I don't know if I can do this anymore." She walked upstairs, her footsteps heavy. Michael sank into the chair, burying his face in his hands. Upstairs, Emily listened from the hallway, her heart pounding. Her family was unraveling, and she didn't know how to stop it. The next morning, Carlo's men showed up unannounced at Michael's office. They closed the door, their bulk filling the space. "Boss wants results," one of them said. "Fast. And he's starting to wonder if you're distracted." Michael forced a steady voice. "I'm on top of it. See that you are." The man leaned closer, his breath hot with tobacco. "Because if you're not, distractions have a way of disappearing." When they left, Michael sat at his desk, sweat slicking his palms. He thought of Sarah, of Emily, of the fragile facade of his life. And for the first time, he wondered if Carlo would use them to keep him in line. That night, Sarah found herself staring at Jonathan Cross's phone number on her nightstand. She didn't call. Not yet. But she kept it close. Because Michael wasn't the only one leading a double life anymore. The reveal. The storm broke on a Thursday night. Emily was home alone, her homework spread across the dining table, when she heard the faint buzz of her father's phone in the kitchen. Normally she wouldn't touch it, but the screen lit up with a preview that made her freeze. Drop confirmed. Warehouse District. Midnight. Her stomach clenched. She reached for the phone before it dimmed, scanning the thread of messages. Codes. Addresses. Numbers that looked more like bank transfers than casual text. Her hands trembled as she scrolled, and then stopped cold at one photo. A grainy surveillance shot of Michael shaking hands with Carlo DeLuca. Emily's breath caught. She didn't know the man's name, but she recognized the face. She'd seen him on the news last year, tied to organized crime, suspected but never convicted. Her father. Her soccer game, bedtime story, pancake on Saturday father, tied to the mob. She shoved the phone back down just as headlights swept across the windows. Michael's car pulled in. Emily hurried upstairs, heart hammering, and pretended to be asleep when he poked his head into her room. But she couldn't close her eyes. Not after what she'd seen. Meanwhile, Sarah sat in her car outside a cafe, Jonathan Cross across from her. She told herself it was innocent, just coffee, just someone to talk to. But as she sat stirring her cup, she realized it wasn't so simple. "He's lying, Jonathan. I know it. But every time I push, he shuts down." Cross leaned forward, his eyes steady on hers. "Sarah, I don't want to alarm you. But I've seen this before. When men are under pressure, when they're hiding things this big, it rarely ends well." Her throat tightened. "This big? What do you know?" He hesitated, then lowered his voice. "I told you I'm with the Bureau. I wasn't lying. We've had eyes on Michael for months. We know he's involved with Vincent Carlo. We just don't know how deep." Sarah's chest constricted. "The Bureau? You're saying my husband's a criminal?" Cross shook his head. "I'm saying he's in danger. And so are you and your daughter." Sarah pressed a hand to her mouth, the room spinning. She wanted to deny it, wanted to walk away. But the puzzle pieces were snapping together, the late nights, the receipts, the shadows in his eyes. Cross slid a card across the table. "If you're ready to help us, we can protect you. But you need to decide soon. Carlo doesn't forgive mistakes." Sarah stared at the card, torn between loyalty and survival. Michael, oblivious to both conversations, sat across from Carlo that same night. The boss was in rare form, pacing the length of his office like a caged tiger. "The feds are sniffing around," Carlo growled. "I got word they're running wires downtown. You sure your books are clean?" Michael nodded, masking his panic. "Triple-checked. Nothing points back to you." Carlo's eyes narrowed. "And nothing points back to you?" Michael forced a confident smile. "Of course not." Carlo studied him, then smirked. "Good. Because if it did, you'd be dead already." The words were casual, but the threat was not. Michael left the meeting with his pulse pounding, the walls of his two lives closing in faster than ever. That weekend, Emily cornered her mother in the kitchen. "Mom, I think Dad's in trouble." Sarah's heart skipped. "Why do you say that?" Emily hesitated, then whispered, "I saw messages on his phone. With dangerous men. I think he's working with them." Sarah's knees nearly buckled. "You shouldn't have." She cut herself off, realizing the truth was out. Her daughter had seen too much. Emily's eyes filled. "Mom, what if he's bad? What if he's doing things he can't come back from?" Sarah pulled her close, her own tears burning. "He's your father. He loves you. Whatever he's caught in, he thought he was protecting us." But even as she said it, Sarah wasn't sure she believed it anymore. That night, Sarah confronted Michael again. "Emily saw your phone." Michael froze. "What?" "She saw the messages. The photos. She knows Michael. And now I know." Her voice shook. You've dragged us into something I don't even understand. Michael's face crumpled, the mask slipping. For once he didn't deny it. He just sat, exhausted, defeated. I never wanted this for you. For Emily. Then what did you want? Sarah snapped. Because all I see is a man lying to his wife, betraying his family, and playing games with criminals who would kill us without blinking. Michael's voice was barely a whisper. I thought I could control it. Silence stretched between them, heavy as chains. Finally Sarah said, The FBI knows, Michael. They've been watching you. His head jerked up, eyes wide. What? I met an agent. Jonathan Cross. He. Michael shot to his feet, fury flashing. You what? Sarah, you don't understand. If Carlos suspects, if he even senses I've talked to the Bureau, he already suspects. Sarah cried. You're drowning us, Michael. And I won't let you drag Emily under with you. Michael's hands shook as he pressed them to his temples. The walls weren't just closing in, they were collapsing. FBI on one side, Carlo on the other, his family breaking in the middle. There was no way out. Not without losing someone. Upstairs, Emily sat on the stairs, listening through the banister. Every word carved deeper into her chest. Her parents weren't just fighting anymore. They were at war. And she didn't know which side to choose. Later that night, Michael sat alone in his office, staring at his reflection in the dark window. For years he had believed he could live both lives, keep them separate, keep them safe. Now the truth was clear. The double life was dead. And soon one of his lives would be too. Breaking point. Michael barely slept after Sarah's revelation. He paced the downstairs office until dawn, mind churning. Jonathan Cross. FBI. His wife had unknowingly let an agent inside their lives. And Carlo, paranoid, violent Carlo, wouldn't hesitate to destroy them if he sniffed betrayal. By morning, Michael felt the noose tightening. When he finally sat down at the kitchen table, Sarah was already there with a cup of coffee. She looked worn, as if she hadn't slept either. We can't keep going like this, she said flatly. Michael rubbed his temples. I know. Then stop pretending you can handle it. We're not safe, Michael. Emily's not safe. We need protection. He met her eyes, the fear in them cutting deeper than Carlo's threats ever had. The Bureau can't protect us from Carlo. Not really. Sarah's voice broke. Then who can? Michael had no answer. Meanwhile, Emily carried her own secret. At school she couldn't focus. During history class she slipped into the library, pulled out her phone, and dialed the number her mother had left on the nightstand, Jonathan Cross's number. Agent Cross, came the voice on the other end, calm, professional. Emily's throat tightened. Emily Hayden. Michael Hayden's daughter. Cross's tone softened instantly. Emily, are you safe right now? Yes, but I know what my dad's doing. I saw his phone. He's working with some man, Carlo. She swallowed hard. I don't know what to do. Cross paused, then said carefully, Listen to me. None of this is your fault. Your dad's in a dangerous situation, but we're going to get him out. I need you to trust me. Tears stung her eyes. What if he doesn't want out? Then you have to let us handle it. But I promise you, Emily, I won't let anything happen to you or your mom. Do you understand? Emily nodded, though he couldn't see. Okay. She hung up quickly, her heart hammering. She had crossed a line. She had chosen a side. That evening, Michael arrived home to find Sarah in the living room with her coat on. I'm taking Emily to my sister's in Chicago for a few days, she said, her voice firm. Michael's stomach dropped. Sarah, no. That's the worst thing you could do. If Carlo thinks you're running. This isn't about Carlo anymore, she snapped. This is about our daughter. And if you won't protect her, I will. Michael's face hardened. You don't understand what's at stake. Sarah shot back. And you don't understand what it's like living with a stranger who might get us killed. They stared at each other, the silence charged with years of love twisted into fear. Finally, Michael stepped aside. Fine. Go. But keep your phone on. Sarah's expression flickered. Relief, sorrow, maybe even a trace of guilt. And then she was gone, Emily trailing behind with her overnight bag. The house fell into a silence so heavy it was suffocating. That night, Carlo summoned Michael to the warehouse. The cavernous building smelled of oil and rust, shadows pooling in every corner. Carlo lounged in a chair, his men scattered like vultures. Word is, the feds have been asking questions about you. Michael forced a calm he didn't feel. They're asking questions about everyone. It's noise. Carlo studied him with predator's eyes. Noise has a way of turning into music. And I don't dance to the FBI's tune. Michael's jaw tightened. Neither do I. Carlo leaned forward. Then prove it. Tomorrow night. There's a shipment coming in. You handle it personally. If the feds show up, I'll know where the leak is. Michael's blood ran cold. It was a trap. Carlo wasn't testing his competence. He was testing his loyalty. And if he failed, he was dead. The next day, Sarah sat with Emily in her sister's apartment, trying to maintain a facade of calm. Emily scrolled through her phone, restless, anxious. Finally, she whispered, "Mom, I called Agent Cross." Sarah froze. "You did what?" "I had to. Dad wasn't going to save us, Mom. But maybe he can." Sarah's chest tightened, torn between fear and gratitude. "Emily, if Carlo finds out." "Then at least we tried," Emily said fiercely. "At least we didn't just sit here waiting for him to hurt us." Sarah pulled her daughter into a hug, trembling. For the first time, she realized Emily wasn't a child anymore. She was in this fight too. That night, Michael sat in his car outside the shipping docks, sweat slicking his palms. FBI vans lurked unseen in the shadows. He could feel them. Carlo's men watched him like hawks. He was the fulcrum between two forces, and whichever way he leaned, something, or someone, would break. His phone buzzed. A text from the unknown number again. "Tonight decides everything." Michael stared at the screen, his reflection fractured in the glass. He knew it was true. Back in Chicago, Sarah's phone rang. She answered, and froze at the sound of Jonathan Cross's voice. "Sarah, listen to me carefully. Michael's at the docks right now. We're moving in. You and Emily need to stay put. Do not leave the apartment." Sarah's breath caught. "Is he?" "We're going to do everything we can to bring him out alive. But this is it. There's no more running." When the call ended, Sarah clutched the phone to her chest, tears spilling. Emily stared at her wide-eyed. "Mom?" Sarah pulled her close. "Your dad's either coming back tonight, or he's not." At the docks, engines roared, crates shifted, and shadows danced in the floodlights. And Michael Hayden walked straight into the breaking point of his double life. The docks. The docks were a maze of shipping containers and shadows, bathed in the harsh glare of floodlights. Michael's heartbeat thundered in his chest. Every step he took echoed against the concrete, a reminder that one wrong move could be his last. Carlo's men were everywhere, lean, hard-eyed, weapons tucked into jackets, scanning the area with predatory precision. Michael knew the plan: personally oversee the shipment, verify that the cash and goods arrived safely, and above all, prove his loyalty. But loyalty had become meaningless. Every moment of his double life, every calculated move had led to this. Michael crept along the edge of the containers, his phone in his pocket buzzing with Jonathan Cross's coded instructions. The FBI was close, hidden in vans behind crates ready to swoop in. But timing had to be perfect. Too early and Carlo would know, too late and someone would die. He spotted the first crate, heavy, stamped with obscure shipping labels. He knelt, checking the inventory, trying to mask the tremor in his hands. A shadow fell across him. One of Carlo's men. "Boss wants a word," the man said, voice low. Michael swallowed hard, rising. He followed the man to a makeshift office beneath a stack of containers. Carlo sat at a folding table, counting cash, cigar smoke curling in the harsh night air. "You're late," Carlo said, eyes narrowing. "And jittery. That worries me." Michael forced a calm smile. "Everything's under control." Carlo chuckled, dark and low. "Under control? You've been sloppy lately. And I hear whispers, people noticing you around." Michael's stomach dropped. "I'm careful. Always careful." Carlo's grin widened. "Careful doesn't matter. Loyalty does." Suddenly, a radio crackled in Carlo's ear. One of his men froze, eyes wide. "Boss, we've got movement. Too many shadows." Michael felt the tension spike. The FBI. Cross had initiated the raid. Carlo's men scrambled, weapons drawn. Floodlights swung across the docks, revealing vans and armed agents. Chaos erupted. Michael had to act. He ducked behind a container, heart pounding. His choices were few: fight, flee, or use the one card nobody suspected: himself. He pulled out his phone, sending one final text across. "I'm inside. Coordinating. Watch the east perimeter." A second later, explosions of sound filled the night. Carlo's men shouted, guns firing. Michael used the confusion to guide the shipment containers toward the edge of the docks, signaling the FBI where the key crates were hidden. Carlo emerged, fury etched into every line of his face. "Hayden." Michael stepped into the open, hands raised. "It's over, Carlo. Don't make it worse." Carlo laughed, a harsh bark that echoed off the metal walls. You think you can betray me and walk away? I didn't betray you, Michael said, voice steady. I protected my family. That's all that matters. The two men circled, tension electric. Carlo lunged, but an agent tackled him from behind. The rest of the FBI moved in, securing the remaining men. Michael's legs shook, relief and fear colliding. He scanned the docks. No sign of casualties among the civilians. The shipment was seized. Carlo was cuffed. For the first time in years, Michael Hayden felt the weight lift. Not entirely, but enough to breathe. Hours later, Sarah and Emily were escorted back to the docks by Cross. They ran into Michael, disheveled but alive. Sarah threw herself into his arms, tears streaking her face. We thought we lost you. Michael held her, the smell of salt water and smoke clinging to his clothes. I almost lost everything, he admitted. Emily hugged him tightly, sobbing. Don't ever hide from us again. I won't, he whispered. Cross approached, nodding at Michael. You did the right thing. The family comes first. Michael looked at his wife and daughter, at the chaos of the docks around them, and realized it had all come down to one truth. Survival meant protecting what mattered most, no matter the cost. Carlo was led away, shouting threats and curses, but his voice felt distant. Michael's life, the life he had nearly destroyed with lies, was being rebuilt in fragments. In the quiet aftermath, Sarah sat beside Michael in the cab of his car. Emily leaned against the door, exhausted but awake. You could have died, Sarah said softly. I know, Michael replied. And I almost let us all down. But not tonight. Not anymore. Sarah studied him, searching for the man she knew beneath the layers of secrecy. Slowly she nodded. We'll get through this. Together. Michael squeezed her hand. Together. Emily, watching them, finally smiled. Promise me, she said. No more secrets. Ever. Michael looked at his daughter, then at his wife, and for the first time in years, he could honestly promise, no more secrets. The night air was cold, carrying away the smoke and tension. The FBI packed up, Carlo was secured, and the Hayden family drove home together, exhausted but intact. And for the first time in a long while, Michael Hayden felt like himself again. Not the man who walked two lives, but the man who could face one life, honestly, with the family he had almost lost. Aftermath. The sun rose over Oakbrook Heights with a quiet clarity, a stark contrast to the chaos of the previous night. The docks were empty now, the evidence bagged, Carlo DeLuca in federal custody, and Michael Hayden sitting behind the wheel of his car in the driveway, staring at the suburban street that had once felt suffocating but now seemed like home. Inside, Sarah and Emily were unpacking overnight bags. The air between them was heavy, but the tension had a different shape, one of cautious hope rather than fear. Michael stepped into the living room, shoulders slumping in exhaustion. I need a shower, he muttered, but there was a faint smile tugging at his lips. Sarah didn't speak immediately. She watched him. Years of lies, secrets, and danger had almost destroyed them, yet here he was, alive. We need to talk, she said finally, her voice steady but soft. Michael nodded, understanding the weight of what she meant. I know. And I'm ready. They sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the sunlight streaming through the windows. The envelope of receipts, once a symbol of deceit, sat untouched on the counter. I want to know everything, Sarah said. Michael took a deep breath, recounting months of double life, laundering money for Carlo, the anonymous threats, the fear that had kept him silent. He didn't spare the details. He let her see the man behind the lies, the husband who had made terrible choices in the name of protection. Sarah listened, silent at first, then asked the hard questions. Questions about loyalty, danger, and morality. Questions that Michael answered honestly, sometimes barely able to meet her gaze. When he finished, Sarah exhaled. I can't say this doesn't hurt, but at least we're honest now. Emily, who had been listening from the doorway, stepped forward. So, everything's over? Her voice carried a mix of hope and caution. Michael knelt to her level. It's over. Carlo is gone. And I won't ever lie to you again. Emily studied him, then threw herself into his arms. Promise? I promise, he whispered, holding her tight. Days passed. Michael met with the FBI, giving testimony that would help bring down Carlo's network. The agents, led by Jonathan Cross, were professional and discreet, ensuring the family remained protected throughout. Cross himself stopped by the house one afternoon, casual but watchful. You did the right thing, he said to Michael. Not just for us but for them. Michael nodded. I almost lost everything trying to protect them. Almost, Cross said, a faint smile on his lips. But you didn't? That's what counts. Sarah and Michael worked to rebuild trust, starting with small gestures. Shared meals without distractions, weekend drives, honest conversations. Emily became a partner in the effort, her teenage intuition sharpening their bond. The house, once a cage of secrets, slowly became a sanctuary again. Family dinners returned, full of laughter and gentle arguments. Soccer games were attended without worry, homework became shared time, and quiet nights were filled with stories and reassurance. One evening, Michael and Sarah sat on the porch, watching the sunset over their quiet street. I was afraid we'd never get back here, Sarah said softly. Michael took her hand. Me too. But we did. And we will. Every day forward, I'll choose this life with you and Emily. Sarah rested her head on his shoulder. And no more secrets? None, he said firmly. I'm done living in two worlds. This one is enough, because you're in it. Emily ran onto the porch, laughing, a soccer ball at her feet. Dad, come play before it gets dark. Michael laughed genuinely, the sound light and free. He rose, tossing his jacket aside, and joined his daughter in the yard. Sarah watched, a soft smile on her face, feeling the fragile but growing peace settle around them. For the first time in a long time, Michael Hayden wasn't the man hiding in two lives. He was just a father. Just a husband. Just a man who had survived and was finally home. And the past, Carlo, the lies, the fear, remained behind in the shadows where it belonged. As night fell over Oakbrook Heights, the street was quiet, save for the sounds of a family reclaiming its life. Laughter, the thud of a soccer ball, and a sense of security that had once seemed impossible. Michael looked at his family, chest heavy with relief, and whispered to himself, we survived. And now we live. The double life was over. The Hayden family, battered but intact, was finally whole.